Hi everybody, welcome to the second video for the course Data Warehousing and Data Mining. In this video we're going to learn how to install the software that we're going to be using for most of our analysis for data mining and data warehousing. So the software that we're going to be using is called R. It's just the alphabet R. And it's an open source software, so it's free to download and install for everybody. You can download and install it in your computers, whether it's a Windows PC or it's a MacBook. It's free for everybody. So as a part of this video, I'm going to go over the instructions to install both the software that we're going to require as a part of the course software. So the first one is called R, and I have uploaded two text documents that you can access on Canvas. This is the first document, and this is labeled instructions to install R on your computers. You can watch this video, or you can just follow the steps in this first instruction document that I've already uploaded on Canvas. So this follows the same steps that I'm going to follow in the video today, so that you're ready to install and run the software on your computers. Because I have access to a Windows computer and I normally work on a Windows computer, I will be following the instructions to download the software on Windows. But if you're using a MacBook, the instructions are almost similar, except for maybe some of the semantics about the installation of the software. I have also uploaded an additional document, which you see over here. This is labeled as an introduction to R. This is recommended as supplementary reading for you, because this is going to help you familiarize with the interface of R. So R, as I said earlier, is a statistical software that is open source, and which means that anybody in the world can basically write a script, create their own functions, create their own commands, and run it on R. So you don't need specifically a license for it. You can just download it from the internet, and it's extremely useful. It's very powerful, and as we go along the course, we're going to realize how R can help us in running the analysis in a much more faster and efficient way, and it's a highly sought after tool in the industry. So if you do know how to work with R, your market value as a job candidate increases tremendously. So which is why we've chosen to work with R this semester. Not only does it make it easier to work on all of this analysis, but it's also very powerful in terms of the analysis that you can do on it. So before we start with the installation of R and both RStudio, I do want to make a distinction between the two software R and RStudio. So think of R as the brains or the calculator, and RStudio as your interface. We're going to be working on both the software, but what you're going to see most of the time and use is RStudio. RStudio, like I said, is just an environment. It's just an interface. It needs R to run in the background for RStudio to work. R on its own does not have a very nice user interface. It's very hard to work on it. So instead, we download R, and then we download RStudio, and every time we have to use R, we're going to use RStudio to run R. So RStudio cannot run without R, which is why we're going to install on our computers R first, and then we're going to install RStudio. So in order to run and download R, first go to Google, and let me bring this up here. I'm going to type R statistical analysis. And the first link that comes up, called the R project for statistical computing, is where we're going to download R from. So since R is free, you can download it from a number of host websites. So in order to download, we're going to go to this CRAN mirror and select the host website where we're going to download R from. Now, since we're in the US, we're going to scroll all the way down to USA, and let's pick the first link under USA. Select your computer type, operating system type. If you have a Mac, you're going to download R for Mac OS, and if you have a Windows, you're going to download R for Windows. I'm going to select download R for Windows, and once I click on it, if this is your first time installing R on your computer, you're going to click on install for the first time, and here I will click on download R 3.6.0 for Windows. This is the latest version of R. For some of the packages that we're going to be using, you do require the latest version of R. So as these packages keep updating and as we go along the course, we might have to update our software as well so that the packages can run accordingly. So I'm just going to click on download R 3.6.0 for Windows, and it should start downloading. Yeah, as you can see, it has been downloaded, and once it's downloaded, I can run this software, select my preferences. You can decide to save it in a different folder. For me right now, I'm saving it under documents, but if you have a separate library where you are saving all your softwares installed, you can add the path here. And basically, we're either going to be using the 32 or the 64-bit, but on the safe side, it's okay to install both the bit files, and let's keep all of these options checked for now. We don't want to customize anything right now, so we'll just accept defaults, and we can create a shortcut in the start menu folder, and you can select what you want to call it. I'll leave it as R. And I also want to create a desktop shortcut for it, so I'm going to check that. And this process is going to install R on my computer. I'll just wait for it to complete. The interface for R can be quite different from some of the other softwares that you might be using. For example, Excel is very user-friendly, or if you've used Jump Pro or SPSS or SAS. The difference between those software and R mainly is that R is command-driven, whereas SPSS, SAS, Excel, all of these other softwares are menu-driven, which means that you have a specific menu that you can click on that gives you the options to select and run the analysis. However, in R, we have to learn the syntax and type command messages in the interface window so that we are able to do the analysis, which makes it slightly more complicated, and you are more prone to getting errors because you can make a mistake by misspelling something or typing a capital letter instead of a lowercase. So all of that can be frustrating at times, but in the end, once you get the hang of it, R is actually easy to use. So I'll finish that, and because of that, if you take a look at my desktop, you can see that both the 64-bit and the 32-bit have been installed here. If I have to open, I'll mostly open the 64-bit, and this is what the interface looks like. I just have one screen where I can type the commands. For example, the first command I want to type is I want to find out what is the square of 57. And ta-da, you can use it as a calculator. Or let's find the mean of the three numbers 4, 5, and 6, and it gives you the average here. Like I said earlier, these are the commands that we have to type to use R, and since there are not a lot of options here under the menu, it becomes harder to work with R, which is why we have decided to work with an environment called RStudio that we're going to install next. So let's go back to Google. RStudio is also free, which means that you can download it for your MacBooks or PCs without having to pay for it. Click on RStudio, the first option that comes up under Google. Now here, if you go to products, or even on the first page, if you select RStudio, it should give you the option to download it. We need the desktop version of RStudio and not the server version, so we're going to select desktop and download RStudio desktop. For our purposes, we don't need all these additional features, so we're only going to work with the free version of RStudio, and these are all the platforms that RStudio can work on. Since I'm working on a Windows operating system, this is the first one that I'll click on, and you'll see that RStudio starts downloading here. The difference between RStudio desktop and RStudio server is the server is a web-based platform. You can use it online, but that can cause some problems sometimes because you're forced to have internet connectivity, and it might not perform the functions as fast as we would like. So that's why we're sticking to the desktop version of RStudio. So it looks like my application has been downloaded. I'm going to run it. Next. Again, I want to install it under documents, so I'll keep it as it is. You can select a folder or wherever you want to create the shortcut. For now, let's keep it as the default option. And this is going to install RStudio on my computer. So for the rest of the semester, we're going to be working with RStudio, but keep in mind that RStudio always uses R in the background. So in order to run an analysis or do some calculations in R, I'm not actually going to open R. Instead, I'll just open RStudio. And once RStudio is installed, we can open it and I'll show you what it looks like. It looks much better than just R, which is why it's easier to work with, and that's why we've chosen to work with RStudio instead of R. But RStudio is just the interface. The brains behind it is R, so we need both the softwares to be installed in our computers for the analysis. Installation is almost complete. To download and install R and RStudio on your computers, you can just click on your start menu. The shortcuts should appear under the start menu. If not, you can click under all programs and access R or RStudio from these options here. Once you do click on them, it opens up. The interface for RStudio looks like what I have as a screenshot here in the instructions document. This is a typical RStudio window. The reason why I'm opening this window instead of RStudio right now is because I have an example here to show you what the analysis might look like on RStudio. So if, let's say, for example, I want to simulate 1,000 random values from a normal distribution, I need to learn the syntax to do that in R. So I can open RStudio. A window like this is going to appear. What I see, the first window here on the top left hand side is my script window, and on this script window are the commands that I'm going to type in order to run the analysis in R. On the left bottom side is the console. So the commands that I type on the script, once they are run, will show up in the console, or you can directly type in the console and run those. The good thing about typing it in the script is that I can save it and then run this whole script the next time I want to perform the same analysis. On the top right hand side is where I see the environment and the history. The environment shows what are the data values that I've already stored and a quick glimpse of those values. And on the bottom right hand side, I can either access the help menu or the packages that I need to install, or I can look at the plots that I have created for this analysis. So this is a quick introduction to R. Before we actually start working with R, I would recommend reading through the second document that I've uploaded, an introduction to R, just to familiarize yourself with all of this analysis. This particular document was written so that you could get familiar with R, but you can run exactly the same functions that I have up here in RStudio too, because like I said earlier, RStudio is just an environment that we operate R in. So I would recommend following these simple steps so that you can run these basic calculations in R and get familiar with the concepts.